Good morning or afternoon, everybody, depending on what you think about midday. My name is Mandy Fader. I'm chairing this session at lunchtime today on living well with long-term incontinence challenges and solutions. And I'm joined by a number of esteemed colleagues, Doreen McClurg from Glasgow Caledonian University in the UK, Joan Ostakovich from Deakin University in Australia, and Eva Westling from the Hospital of Sabbatsberg here in Sweden. Now, we thought this is a round table. We thought there might be a table, well, there is kind of, and we would have a kind of intimate discussion in a cozy environment, which is pretty far from what we've got in the Titanic, that is the Hall K. But nevertheless, we wanted to make this quite an interactive session where we have some discussions about these challenges that we all have, those of us who are here and who are supporting patients who have long-term incontinence. So we're posing some questions to you. We'd like you also to pose questions to us. So although we'll be sitting over in that table, we've got presentations followed by short discussions. Please come down to the podiums and join in. Please come down to the microphones, rather, and join in and introduce yourself and ask us questions or pose your thoughts about the issues that we're trying to address today. So that's what we're trying to achieve. So these are the 4 challenges we're going to look at over the next hour. How can we help people to make evidence-based decisions about choosing continence products? Challenging the rationing of continence pads and products in organisations and across different countries. We'd be interested to hear about what your experiences are in your different countries. How to lead a new kind of normal life for people with bowel leakage problems. And how to live at home and access services with multiple sclerosis and continence problems. So quite a diverse range of topics here, which reflect really the interests and expertise of the panel members. So we'll do some short presentations and have a short discussion as we go along. So I'm going to kick off with how can we help people to make evidence-based decisions on choosing continence products. Now, this is an area of which my group has been involved in doing research for many years, and sorry, nothing to disclose on my declarations. And I think one of the challenges is really how do we know there are thousands of different continence products, and how do we give the right kind of advice? How can we use the evidence that we know when we actually see patients and try and give them support and advice? So. As we know, every 4 years comes out the incontinence book, and for the last 3 volumes, we have contributed, the panel members here have contributed to the Management with Continence Products chapter. Now, the concern here is that this provides, as we know, all the grades of evidence about why we should use different products, different aspects of product use. For example, do they cause skin damage? Issues like that. But none of this is really easily translatable or usable in a patient consultation. So 2 volumes ago, we decided to work with the International Consultation on Incontinence and the ICS here to actually form a website in order to really bring that kind of evidence to life, or at least to be accessible, so that we could actually help patients in consultations to make those kinds of decisions. So I'm going to try and take you through our website, and really we'd like to hear more about how we might use this kind of information better. Now, those of you who've got smartphones, you might want to just type in the www here, that's continenceproductsadvisor.org. The actual configuration of the website should be that it forms as an app on your phone, so it won't look like what I'm going to show you here, but it looks like it's much more manageable on a phone. So do try and see if you can call this up as we go. Now, we're not the only. This is not the only website that's about choosing or helping people to know about products. Different countries, particularly in Australia, the Continence Foundation of Australia have got websites that do have continence product information. But perhaps the distinctive difference here is a number of things. We've tried to really incorporate the evidence so that we can actually provide sort of research-based help for for those healthcare professionals or users who are using it. And we also incorporated an evidence-based decision aid in terms of taking patients through how do you make the decisions about what kinds of products are likely to be best for you. So we've got a number of features which hopefully will make this a really usable application for clinicians as well as for users themselves. So I'm going to have a leap of faith here and see if I can actually get it to, I'm assured it's all going to work smoothly. Now this is the homepage for the website. And as you say, we're very notable things. This is impartial advice. There's no support given by any companies. And of course, there's much information on the internet from different companies about their own brands of products. But of course, they don't give that kind of impartial, independent view based on evidence. So we have two main parts of the site. There's the product information, which gives you the different types of product groups. And I'll just go in here and look at fecal devices, where you can see the different types: anal plugs, fecal pads, fecal collectors, and I'll go through a different one in a minute to show you the details of those. So you can browse the product categories through looking through product information here. And we know from Google Analytics, a lot of people do go straight in and look at all the different product categories. Alternatively, and what might be more helpful to you is actually to take people through the decision aid, and either the person or the healthcare professional goes through the short questions. Are you male or female? Do you usually need help? We're going to say no to this one. Do you have urinary and fecal incontinence, or fecal incontinence only? We'll say urinary. Do you have to stand to change your products? This is particularly important for pads. And what kind of leakage do you have? And we're saying moderate to heavy. And then the decision aid gives you a number of recommendations. These are the based on what we know, the sort of most likely to suit types of products for either moderate daytime leakage or heavy daytime leakage. And down here we have nighttime leakage, and also other different kind of categories that you might fall into. And so the user can then go in and look at a different type of products. I'm going to look at sheaths here. And then there'll be information about those sheaths. What are sheaths good for? Who do they work best for? Lots of images, and we take all our own photographs, so we don't use any branded information here. And there's a section on why they're more likely to suit you or why they're less likely to suit you. And then a number of videos on most of the pages showing how they can be used. And what we found in the work that we did looking at videos on YouTube is there's plenty of videos which show diagrams or sort of infographic type information about how to use, for example, sheaths. Very little showing actually applying sheaths on patients themselves. And so we wanted to show us a more realistic ways of doing this. So we've obviously had access to patients who have helped us with doing these, making these videos. We have an interactive session. We ask patients or users to send in their tips, and then we screen them and put them up, and people can like them or dislike them, so that we have an ongoing sort of dialogue. And then there is a section about suppliers. How do you find the products? And we list any supplier comprehensively, and where you can get them across the world, and where those suppliers deal with. And then we also ask people, or suggest that they might want to mix and match these products with other ones, because we know from evidence that actually products that are used in combination, usually patients find that more successful than just using one particular type of product. Below that, we have obviously the evidence is listed, and then in the text, which we're reviewing at the moment in the light of the last chapter, and is probably rather long, is also supported by the evidence. So there's more videos down here, and I'm just going to show you here, there, for example, you can call up the reference for this one, and it will go in and find the actual paper to support that particular statement that we're making. So in this way, we're providing the evidence in terms of the advice that we're giving to patients. And I'm just going to go straight back to the top here. So that's how it all works. I'm going to go back to the presentation, hopefully, yes. And just to say that this is being, as I said, reviewed at the moment. We also have patient patient advisors on the panel, and so the content is reviewed with patients because we think it's very important. So not just the panel members who've been part of the ICI book. And we have a new website, just briefly to show you a new front end of it, because as you know, the ICS is very good with the tech. We've had huge support here from people like Dom and Roger and Ashley, those of you who know the technical people here, and they've made a new front page for us, which is much more jazzy, I think I'd call it, and what we've aimed for is simpler to use, so you can go in and look at women and the products by women and men. There's a bit, this is the product advisor bit. Here's the browsing, the different product category bits. So this will be perhaps more appealing to use, easier to use, and will be helpful in terms of providing more support. We have different sections on, for example, managing prostate cancer, and particularly information about support for patients using catheters when they have had a prostatectomy, and also preparing for example, bladder and bowel leakage that might occur once you've had a prostatectomy. So that's the basic website. We have done some evaluations on this. We looked particularly at men who'd had prostate cancer surgery and did a very small randomized trial of patients using the CPDA, as we called it, and those without. And what we found is that generally patients feel much more confident and more certain. They have less decision conflict about their decisions that they make when they've had use of the decision aid used through this advisor mechanism. So that's just to tell you a bit more about the kind of information that we're working on providing through ICS and ICI. So I just want to talk then a little bit with the panel and with yourselves. We do have this kind of information, but I do think it's important that we understand how they might be used. You know, is it feasible to use a website tool in a clinical situation with patients or in patients' homes? And I know that one of the other questions, and there may be more that you wish to ask, is, you know, should we worry about raising expectations? If people see all these products, you know, how many of them can they get? How much are they going to cost? These are the kind of questions that we need to think about. So I'm going to walk over there. And meantime, if you could think, if anybody would like to ask a question or respond to our questions to consider, we'd like to hear from you. So I'll get over there. So do feel free to come to the microphone if you've got any suggestions about that. Otherwise, we shall talk within the panel. So I'll probably start actually by asking Doreen at the end there, why not, about, I mean, do you think that there are barriers to using these kinds of website type apps, if you like?
Okay, I suppose one of the barriers would be that do people actually use them? So, you know, I don't know about anybody else's phone, but I have quite a lot of apps on my phone, but I eventually don't actually use them sometimes that much. So I think if it's found to be useful, yes, but I think it's actually getting people to use it would be the main thing. But again, it's getting it out there and getting clinicians to know and help people maybe to go on it and show them as well and say, look, these are the things these are some of the options. They might not all be available, but it gives you a better scope and understanding.
Question there from Scott.
It's not a question, it's a comment on your question. Should we worry about raising expectations? Yes. No. And the reason is if you don't raise expectations, you can't fulfill them because the fulfillment of them will be bottom up. I mean, unless the consumers put pressure on the services, it's not going to happen. So the answer is I have absolutely no worries about you raising expectations or anybody else doing so.
Thank you. I would agree. Yes, unless we create that demand. And of course, it's not a consumer sort of system product. So people don't tend to complain about the products or say they don't work for them. So the more we can encourage patients to know what there is and test them, then actually the more information we get. I think Kathleen's coming down with a walking along the big auditorium.
Some great questions, Mandy. Some of the work that our research group has done and recently published showed that women actually get most of their information from advertisements. So especially television. And it's a bit of a, they call it a, trial and error. Yeah. They'll buy this kind of pad, and next time they'll go to another kind of pad. So getting them to use a website, I guess it's raising awareness that the website exists. So on our research group, we have a pharmacist who is very interested in increasing the role of pharmacists in continence. And so part of what she's doing, and hopefully get her study funded to look at this, is to have some kind of point of care where the pharmacists are able to provide more information, because in Canada we know people go to very commonly to pharmacists or pharmacies to look for this, and they'll kind of sneak down the aisle, and but even if there were rip-off sheets that people could take with the Continence Advisor website on it, that might be another way of increasing the use.
Yeah, indeed, and just so there are cards available for the Continence Product Advisor. You can get them from the we'll have some here, but also from the ICS desk in the exhibition. But pharmacists is a very good idea, and certainly in the UK, there's a big push to utilise.
I think that's really a really good idea in the UK, because you say it's pharmacists, trying to get it out of the practitioners. So if the pharmacist had this information as to, how to advise people or where to send them, I think it would be really excellent.
Yeah, indeed. Could you introduce yourself?
Ellen Jansen-Podin, I'm a urotherapist from Germany. I think it's wonderful. Thank you very much. I think very interesting, this website. It's perfect from my point of view. I would like to have it. You won't have it in any other language? You didn't translate it?
It's a good question. We would like to do that. And obviously Google Translate's a bit limited, but it's something that I think as we've formed the website, the next stage would be different languages. And I mean, probably Spanish would be the first one, but you have other recommendations. And it may be that we can use the ICS with all our contacts to obviously, because that language nuance is extremely important. So.
Yes, it would be perfect, and it for us it would be interesting to translate in Germany, maybe, if you like to get in contact.
For volunteers.
And my question is, how can you finance it? How is it possible? Do you receive the money? Do you have, is the university you ask you for this project, or can you explain it?
It's a good question. We've had funding from lots of different sources to do this. We started it off with some university funding. We've had funding for different parts of the development of the website from Movember for the prostate cancer part of the site. We have funding from the Alzheimer's Association to do a dementia part of the site. And also the ICS has given much of their time to the site. So one of the sustainable aspects of it is hosted by the ICS, and therefore we have the technical support to do the work. A lot of the content work is done by ourselves on the panel. But yeah, so we've managed to pull that together. But more money is always needed.
Hi. Tiina Maittinen from Tampere University. Thank you so much. It's a wonderful resource. One of the questions that I would have, I was just browsing through a little bit, but about the question of raising expectations. When a person doesn't have the money to buy the products, or the public health sector provides only certain type of products. So I wonder whether you have considered as a political economist, I'm thinking like whether you have considered putting in an element of the sort of cost division in different societies. I just a couple of days ago, I heard listened to a presentation of the Dutch system, for instance, where the insurance companies have a big role in determining what sort of products people can use. So I wonder if that sort of information would be very useful to include as well for different countries. Like how do you get support, and where do you get support? Because of the stigma, people might just end up using their own money as well even if they would actually might be eligible
them.
to different kinds of support.
It's a very good point. We know that happens a lot, is that people, and in all countries, even certainly in the UK, where you can get them, some products for free, people still buy them, and because they don't know. There is a section on the website called Worldwide, and we're hoping to expand that section, which gives much more information about how the different types of systems are working in different countries, so how you can access products. But you're right, it's a difficult one, isn't it? How much do we put in the way of pricing or giving people an idea about price? We do have a section where we say more expensive or less expensive alternatives, because obviously that's important for some people. If you're thinking about if price is really important to you, what could you do?
I think that system level information would be very, very useful, and also for practitioners, I suppose, particularly for, say, GPs who are not kind of specialized in these kinds of areas and so on. Yeah. Thank you.
Good. Thank you. Good suggestion.